Happy Thursday. Welcome into our Sports Burst Studios. Jay Cordero back in the house.
What's
Hi.
good? Back from Puerto Rico, by the way. Where
I know.
I've just been on a Bad Bunny binge. So.
Oh my God, I'm seeing everyone's posting their Spotify most listened to whatever stations this year, and a lot of Miami people have Bad Bunny number one on that list.
Not shocking.
For me, it was mostly Queen.
Really?
Yeah, I drive fast when I listen to Queen. So.
I don't really have Spotify, but you guys let us know what your top chart thing is. Anyway, we're going to get to some Clásico news because we are just under 2 weeks away from the big match, a midweek edition of El Clásico due to that postponement that we've all talked about to endless regard. Anyway, we have Real Madrid news because two major stars may not be playing in that Clásico. And we're also going to break down a team dinner because guess who walked away with a golf club?
Oh,
yeah, but I don't know who.
It was Marcelo.
Yeah. Wait, Marcelo is involved in it, though. So we're going to break that down. Anyway, we're going to talk about Atletico Madrid, who are going to be in action tomorrow, get Dre's take on the whole Atleti situation, and also break down PSG because you were on the call for that match yesterday. And we all want to talk about United versus Tottenham also. And we'll get to a little bit of Arsenal news, too. All this on Sports Burst. That starts now. Ricardo Mazza saying, Sports Burst always has me bursting at the seams. Contain yourself, Ricardo Mazza. Thank you for joining us. So about that team dinner. So Real Madrid had a Christmas team dinner. Now, there's always a lot of speculation about who attends and who doesn't attend. Gareth Bale did attend this one, so that is exciting news. Benzema and Toni Kroos not in attendance.
First to arrive, right? So,
Yes, one of the first to arrive. And according to Marca, there was a funny gift exchange at this Real Madrid Christmas dinner. Gareth Bale, as I mentioned in that teaser, walked away with a golf club.
Yeah,
and that was apparently
terrible picture.
given to him by Marcelo, who we all know is the funny man in the Real Madrid dressing room.
There's a golf club somewhere in that picture?
Yes,
Right
it's
there,
this.
Yeah. You can very faintly see
It's
it
this.
there.
It's in a cover
Is it a
here at
putter?
the
I think it's a
bottom.
putter.
No, it's I think it's a wood because you put a cover on the woods.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a wood one. This one given to him allegedly by Marcelo. But I just love that this is now a joke.
Yeah, no, remember there was the Mariano celebration with,
Yes.
fake golf swing. Obviously, Bale kind of started to sort of turn this against the Madrid media when he held up that Wales sign that, said Wales, golf, Madrid in that order.
Right.
It just completely triggered the Madrid-based dailies, AS and Marca. But I love to see that this is actually a sign of support from the squad, and it shows you that it doesn't bother them. The fact that they can joke about it in a setting where they know that paparazzi's there, they know that the press is going to cover it.
Right.
I think they're, having a bit of fun with it is actually a really clever way of supporting Gareth Bale from what is kind of a ridiculous attack.
It really is. Mark Golden saying that Marcelo's a kidder, and he really is. He's known for years now as the clown in the dressing room, so it was a nice touch by him. But he wasn't the only one that got a funny gift. Lucas, I have a list here. Lucas Vasquez apparently given a pair of lifting weights because that is how he injured his foot, dropping a lifting weight on his foot. Marco Asensio given a baby walker. These all according to Marca. Given a baby walker because he is recovering from his injury this summer.
So they're just having a go at all the injured players,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah.
Bale is perpetually injured. Go on.
It gets better. Luka Jovic given a Spanish dictionary. Better start learning the language.
Sure.
Vinicius given a stuffed animal because he is seen as the baby on the team.
I
So
would imagine some targets to aim at would have been.
Oh, that's funny. One of those dart boards.
yeah.
Oh, that would have been funny. And Brahim Diaz also given children's toys. And this one was a little bit, and I don't know if I'm missing the joke here. Ferland Mendy given a brick.
No idea.
But apparently this was one that got a lot
Inside
of
joke?
laughs in the in the dinner, yeah. But
So
I
if
mean,
you
I
know,
didn't know if I
Phyllis,
was missing something. You guys out there, if you guys know why Ferland Mendy was given a brick, let us know. But anyway, back to the big news, which is the two injuries. I have two medical reports here. Real Madrid releasing two medical reports today. One for Eden Hazard and the other for Marcelo. That ankle injury that Hazard picked up against PSG was at first reported to be minor, and it is since not minor. They are still tracking that progress, so he's not expected to play for El Clásico, but we'll keep you guys posted. And Marcelo, the latest casualty, picking up a calf injury.
Yeah.
So two big losses.
And just the two latest losses, right? Because it's Real Madrid. We forget that they've been without Marco Asensio the entire season, virtually. He's had it with a long-term injury. Nacho is reportedly close to coming back, but he's been on the injured list for a while. Lucas Vazquez, as we mentioned, who got hurt. James is not fit. Bale on and off.
Right.
And then you add Marcelo and Hazard. These are like 6 names, 4 of which could very easily be either starting or rotational players that would play a part.
Right.
And in that sense, it's kind of remarkable that Real Madrid have managed to compete with Barcelona, staying level at the top of the table, keeping pace with the defending champions and league leaders. But they've got the pieces for the Clásico to still field an incredibly competitive team. I imagine Ferland Mendy would be the guy to step in for Marcelo at left back.
Right.
Obviously not the same type of left back, but offers a lot of his own virtues, his own qualities. And then there's an interesting question as to what they do about Hazard's position. I would guess that Isco will be given an opportunity. He's looked good the last time he got a chance to start. And so I can see a scenario where they play with 4 midfielders, Isco being that 4th midfielder, and then you're forced to start Gareth Bale because obviously Eden Hazard is out. Vinicius, you can't count on to score goals.
Or Rodrigo.
For Rodrigo, this might be too big a stage. It's one where maybe he can contribute, but possibly not start.
Right.
So yeah, I could see a scenario where you get Isco starting either on the left wing just in Hazard's position, or more likely with a more free role as a center attacking midfielder behind Benzema and Gareth Bale. And I like that a lot because they have cover. One of the reasons why that works and one of the reasons why I think Isco looks so good last time out is they've got cover in Valverde, who covers so much ground,
Right.
more so than Modric does at his age, and Toni Kroos, obviously. So with Casemiro alongside. So that does free up Isco of some of the defensive responsibility, allows him to express himself better. And he's got the experience for these kind of big matches. And so if I had to guess who's going to replace Hazard, it's probably going to be Isco.
And Zinedine Zidane has got the best out of Isco as of late, and he did during his last tenure with Real Madrid also. So
that to me has been the single biggest strength of Zidane. Aside from the fact that he is just synonymous with Real Madrid, both for his playing days and for what he did there as a manager.
Right.
He's managed to keep players who don't get a lot of playing time happy and able to get into a state of mind where when they do come in, they produce. And I think that's what we've seen with Isco, who hadn't played in ages, hadn't started in ages, and he came in and he looked like he hadn't missed a beat.
Peter Munoz Jr. saying Madrid should go with 2 strikers with Isco at center attacking mid, which is probably what will happen. Yeah. Richard Murray, Isco doesn't push back lines on the dribble like Hazard does. No, they're 2 different players, but you have to find a replacement for Hazard somehow.
Right. And it's a shame because there was so much talk early in the season about, Eden Hazard not being at his full fitness and when are we going to see the best version. And I think, for several weeks now we have seen a very, very good version of Hazard. Even if the productivity, the goals haven't been there, his play has been phenomenal. And so, yeah, obviously there isn't another guy you can put in there that's going to give you the same things that Eden Hazard does. If you look at sort of the areas, the action areas where Real Madrid are doing damage, it tends to be toward that left wing because of Hazard's influence there. In his absence, they'll change things a little bit, but you've got a Ferland Mendy who can, fly up that left wing opposite Carvajal. Isco can come a little bit more inside. Toni Kroos has been just imperious this season, so I still think it's going to be an extremely competitive Real Madrid in that Clásico.
Bob Fakema saying Marcelo to retire to become a comedian. We'll see.
Sure.
Arturo Ruiz saying, I'd love to see Isco in the starting 11. And I think a lot of Madridistas would like to see him start in a Clásico. He's a man who's played many Clásicos, so he knows the pressure. He knows what to do. I mean, and under Zidane, he's been great.
Right, and I mean, he just looked terrific. The last game that they played, that they did play, I believe that was the starting lineup. Up top,
Yes.
It was Bale, Benzema, and Isco was just lights out. And again, it's because he gets so much help from that midfield, frees up that defensive responsibility. He could just float around to wherever the ball is and be the man pulling the strings. Bale, with his physicality, always offers a threat. Benzema is having one of his best seasons, and so I think Isco's a very good playmaker and facilitator for those 2 guys.
Fabian Cardellino saying, I'm a Barca diehard, but I'm sad to see Hazard injured, especially when he was picking up his pace. Yeah, and we always like to see, especially a big
Full
signing.
strength.
Right. Not only full strength, but a new signing like Hazard to play in his first, what would have been his first Clásico. Would have been a spectacle. But there's another Clásico to look forward to for Hazard, and we're still not 100% sure if will be fit. It doesn't look like it, but anyway. Atletico Madrid in action, though, tomorrow. A Friday match, which is unlikely for Atleti.
For Atleti? Yeah, they're not-
Yeah, because usually on Fridays, it's not the strongest matches, but tomorrow is one that you will want to watch.
Yes.
Atleti taking on Villarreal. And an Atleti side that Simeone has said is, quote, in a transition year.
Yeah.
What do you make of that?
I make of that they're in 6th place, 5 points off the pace of 3rd place Sevilla, and
He has to say that.
all right. So Simeone manages the tactics and the personnel, but he also, if you watch him on the touchline at the Wanda Metropolitano, he also manages the crowd. When he needs them to get in.
Yeah.
He also manages the ball boys when they need to be quicker of the ball or make the ball disappear. And he also manages expectations. Right. We've heard over the years the partido a partido, the way that he sort of talked about. Well, our obligation is to finish 3rd. We can't really compete financially with the likes of a Barcelona and a Real Madrid. The problem is their obligation is to finish 3rd. If we want to be more generous, the obligation is to qualify for the Champions League.
Right.
But if you're going to make the sort of financial comparison, you're going to highlight the gap between yourself and Barca and Madrid, then you also have to recognize that there is a significant gap between yourself and the teams below you, the Sevillas, the Valencias, right?
Correct.
And so, your obligation is to finish on the La Liga podium, even if 4th is good enough for a Champions League. It's almost not good enough for the squad that Atletico Madrid have, the reputation that Atleti have had under Simeone, because you've sort of brought them back from
Right.
the abyss. So I think this is him sort of managing the expectations of what the season, how the season is going so far for Atleti. It has been disappointing. They haven't been able to consistently count on goals from anyone other than Alvaro Morata, so he's been a bit of a lifesaver in that
Right.
regard. But that said, they're still only just 1 point off the pace of that top 4, off the Champions League, which not qualifying for the Champions League would be a calamitous season for Atletico Madrid because of the revenue that comes with playing in the Champions League. I still think they're very much in the hunt for that. But this is just him sort of managing the expectations. And if we want to take him at his word that Atletico Madrid are in transition, that's also not that far-fetched. I mean, it's a team that signed 7 new starters for this season. Because of some injuries, the back 4, for the most part, in a big chunk of the season, has been 4 new players. Trippier, Felipe, the other Hermoso at center back, and Renan Lodi, who, according to Simeone, when he arrived, he was ready to go back to Brazil, wasn't happy, but did start to sort of acclimate. So there is something to the familiarity. I think at this point of the season, those guys probably should be clicking. They've had enough games together.
Right.
They've had enough training sessions to have Simeone's sort of ideas in mind. But if you want to take him at his word that they're in transition, and you can throw into the conversation that there are 7 new starters on this team.
What do you say to people that say maybe Diego Simeone's time in Atleti has come to an end?
I say be careful what you wish for. This is a little bit like the Arsene Wenger thing at Arsenal for me. Not an identical
Right.
comparison, but I always thought with the whole Wenger out thing, it's like be careful what you wish for, because Arsenal didn't look to me like a squad that needed to win the Premier League in so many of those years, or needed to be at the semifinals of the Champions League all
Right.
the time. And so if you've got a manager who can sort of make the team greater than the sum of their parts, be careful about trying to replace that guy with what I call the other guy syndrome, right? It's just bring me the other guy. I don't care who the other guy is. I'm not happy with this guy. Bring me the other guy. Well, the other guy might be worse than what you have right now. And there aren't a lot of managers who are much better than Diego Simeone in the world. And a lot of elite clubs would love to have Simeone at the helm. So I don't think there's too many Atleti fans that are asking for Simeone to move on. I think it's more some of the neutrals frustrated. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Eric Krakauer. Frustrated with having a squad that looks to have this much attacking talent and do seem to be, in just historically Simeone way, reined into a more sort of defensive structure.
Maybe looking into a crystal ball a little bit, and I know this is far-fetched, but when Simeone does ultimately, maybe one day, say goodbye to Atletico Madrid, there's rumors that maybe an Everton or an Arsenal, if he was to divorce
Right.
Atletico Madrid sooner rather than later, could be 2 options.
So it's not one that, again, we don't expect Simeone to move on
No.
anytime soon. But one team that he has sort of, batted his eyelashes at in the past is Inter. Obviously, so a return to Serie A.
Right.
Inter would be a good fit. Serie A would be a good fit. They seem to be happy with Antonio Conte at the moment. They're building something for the Nerazzurri. But I would see Premier League. We've said for a long time that Atleti have been like the most Premier League team in La Liga. So there will be no shortage of suitors
Right.
for a manager of this quality, who's the longest tenured coach in Spanish football. All I would caution is, if you do replace him with someone, you're not guaranteed. Like, who is the someone? That's what I want to hear.
Don't make it Unai Emery.
Who's the guy who's going to come in and do a better job than
Right.
what Simeone has done? Who's the guy that's going to come in and take this team to 2 Champions League finals, to a La Liga title? I get it that all of that success was now a few seasons
Right.
away, but just be careful what you ask for.
Buffakema saying 5 points to third at this point in the season is easily attainable. Definitely not a lost season.
Des Norris with the Sevilla in a constant state of transition year. It is. Like,
That is
it's-
true.
like, that's the club's motto, is transition year, right underneath the crest. But that's what you get with Munchie. You basically,
Right.
you're going to deconstruct and reconstruct
Because
competitive
it's a
sides.
puzzle for him. Yeah. Mosadi saying the true La Liga usually doesn't kick off until the second half of the season when the games are compact and the teams are put in to test the league, Champions League, and Copa del Rey. Yeah, and that's when teams are stretched thinner than now, I guess.
Right. Yeah, I guess teams like Barcelona, Madrid, and to a similar extent, Atletico Madrid, aren't judged on what happens in the Champions League group stage, aren't judged on what happens in the first 19 rounds of the season. They're judged on what happens in like 6 to 7 games, and they all happen in the second half of the campaign. So
Right.
absolutely nothing is sort of set in stone about Simeone or Atletico's season. And I just think he's managing the expectations. He's looking at a team that's got a lot of new pieces in it, that is struggling to score goals, a lot of 1-0s, a lot of 1-1s. And, he's thrown some of his players, if not under the bus, at least like in front of the bus where the headlights are shining on
Right.
them. Because in a
With full pads. So
yeah,
you don't get hurt.
in a radio interview recently, he talked about like we'll be good when so and so is good, and he was naming players who have to adapt and who have to pick their game up.
I actually have an interesting question for you because a video emerged, and I don't think I've put this question to you. A video emerged of João Felix almost blatantly ignoring Simeone, yelling at him from the touchline, giving him instructions. João Felix with his back turned. Press in Portugal have actually criticized João Felix's decision to go to Atletico Madrid, saying that Simeone wasn't the correct manager for him, isn't able to get the best out of him. What do you make of the whole João Felix situation?
So it's difficult when you pay that much for a young player to expect sort of the immediate results.
Right.
But the price tag comes with certain, if not responsibility, certainly certain expectations. And the truth is, João Felix is a very young player who is still developing as a footballer, developing as a person, developing as a man. And so it doesn't surprise me that he's going to have some of these issues. And so we demand, because these guys make millions of dollars to kick a ball around, we sort of demand more from them than we do from other 19, 20-year-olds who are allowed to make those stupid mistakes, who
Right.
sometimes won't react the right way to their boss, and they'll learn from that. So I wouldn't make a huge deal out of this. In terms of whether Simeone is the right manager for João Felix, I think a lot of people sort of overblow the tactical importance of like how he's being used. And I think from a professional standpoint, you could do a lot worse than to be mentored by a player and a manager like Diego Simeone. So I'm not buying that this is not the right coach for him.
So maybe João Felix has to change his behavior and respect a man of Diego Simeone's caliber.
Yeah, and so again, we're talking about one incident,
Right.
And drawing
Setting an-
conclusions from that, and sort of assuming that like this is the way
This
it always
bad
is.
boy,
Right?
yeah.
I remember years ago when Guardiola was with Barca, the Catalan press and the Madrid-based press made a huge deal about Messi opening up a can of soda in front of Pep Guardiola, in front of the entire team, because they were working on his diet and whatnot, and that was seen as like a rebellious thing. But they blew that out of proportion. I
Right.
think this may be blown out of proportion a bit as well. It could, if it happens, if it's a recurring thing, it could signal some maturity issues and whatnot. But I wouldn't make too big a deal of it.
Let's read the comments and then we'll move on to PSG. Fabian Cardellino, got to give him time to adapt and he will shine. Certainly we have to be patient with João Felix. Bob Flakema saying Atletico underestimated how much losing Godin would affect them. I don't think they didn't underestimate. They knew it would be a big loss.
So Simeone himself has talked about which he was asked which was the biggest loss. And so a lot of people would go to Godin because Godin's influence obviously was tremendous. Simeone flat out said it was Griezmann. Losing Griezmann was the biggest loss because Griezmann does things that other players can't do.
Right.
And you can get, solid defenders. I'm not saying necessarily to the caliber of Diego Godin, but I think they fortified that position quite well. I think Mario Hermoso is still a young player who's a good center back. Felipe has been tremendous for them. I think in the air especially, he's sensational, which was
Right.
one of the strengths of Diego Godin. They've had some injuries with Jimenez missing some time, with Savic missing some time. But what Griezmann gives you is irreplaceable because he was at times their best playmaker, at times their best goal scorer.
Right.
And respecting the distance between the two players, we're now on the same team. giving you the sort of influence that Messi gives to Barcelona, Atleti got out of Antoine Griezmann. You can't replace that. That's irreplaceable. You have to do different things to try and make up the production and the influence of Antoine Griezmann. And you're not going to get it out of a player, I don't think, as young, as sort of football speaking immature as João Felix, or out of a guy like Thomas Lemar, who I've always felt was a little bit overvalued, who I think Atleti sort of overpaid for. Those two guys together don't make up for the absence of Griezmann.
And you, just like you said, managing expectation, we cannot expect João Felix to come in and be Antoine Griezmann.
Not right away.
Yeah.
Maybe eventually, but certainly not right away. But when you pay that amount of money, people are going to demand the results.
Right. Anthony Romeo saying yesterday's game between Man U and Tottenham was surprisingly good, and so we'll move back into the past to yesterday's matches, but we're going to begin with PSG. You guys send us your Man United Tottenham questions as we speak about PSG, who walked away with a 2-0 win against Nantes. Mbappe scoring you guys aren't seeing me under the table, but I'm doing a back heel goal, and it was sensational.
This was the first time that Mbappe and Neymar started together all season, right? Because both have had their injury troubles. They've been sidelined for significant portions of the season. Angel Di Maria has been arguably PSG's best and most consistent player this season, although he seems to be at his best when Neymar is absent.
Interesting.
And so even though this wasn't a bad game by Di Maria, it was a more quiet game than we've seen recently. But the return of both Neymar and Mbappe to the starting lineup for the first time, both scored. Actually, Neymar had to put the ball in the back of the net 3 times for it to finally count. He had a goal wiped out for VAR. He had another a penalty wiped out for encroachment, and then on the retake of the penalty, did bury it eventually to make it 2-0.
With an interesting celebration too.
So I'll touch on that in a moment.
Sorry.
But Mbappe's goal was tremendous as well. The back heel was like hands in his pocket, the most chill back heel you'll ever see. Just glorious French flair from a player who is, climbing quickly as the heir apparent to the best player on the planet. It was a beautiful build-up on the play as well. All three of the front three for PSG involved. It was Neymar to Di Maria to Mbappe. Lovely finish. It sometimes feels like in Ligue 1, Paris don't have to get out of second gear, and this was one of those games where in second gear, they still managed to beat Nantes. But the guy we haven't mentioned, and obviously the goal was terrific, the return of Neymar and Mbappe was a big deal, but Keylor Navas, if and when Paris finally win the Champions League, I think Keylor Navas will have as much to do with it as anyone, because yes, Paris dominated that match. Yes, Paris deserved to win that match, but Navas kept out 2 or 3 would-be goals that would have turned a good performance that didn't lead to 3 points into all 3 points and another clean sheet. I don't want to rehash why or how Real Madrid decided that they needed to move on from that guy, but I have a hard time. I've talked to Gary Bailey, our resident goalkeeper, about this. How do you rank the goalkeepers? What sets Jan Oblak apart from Marc-Andre Ter Stegen, apart from Gianluigi Buffon in his best, apart from Manuel Neuer in his best? Different approaches, all brilliant. I don't know that there are goalkeepers that I can place ahead of Keylor Navas. He'll do it differently. Maybe he's not as physically or athletically gifted as some of the other guys, but I can't definitively put other big-name goalkeepers ahead of Keylor Navas. And Paris got an absolute jewel in him. Now, as far as the Neymar thing that I teased a little bit, I've been waiting for Neymar to embrace the villain role. Just do the full
Gareth
WWE
Bale. Do the
heel
Gareth
turn.
Bale.
Exactly. Embrace it, make fun of it, have fun with it. He seems to be halfway between sort of embracing it and being a little bit indignant about it, because he did not look happy. He was booed in the warm-ups, although it wasn't a full house, so it wasn't as loud as it could have been. And then he was again booed and whistled when he was subbed out. And you can see sitting on the bench, he's not altogether happy, even after scoring a goal in that game. So I say just embrace it, man. Just be the villain. Maybe it's not his personality. Dani Alves has talked about how Neymar is kind of sweet, and he meant this in a way that he's a bit immature at times because he lets the emotional stuff get to him. But just embrace it, man. Be the villain that we all want you to be. Cristiano Ronaldo's on his last legs. We need a new sort of, what does Ray call him? The Dark Invader or something like that?
Yeah. We need a new one. Right. Well, and exactly what you said, just make fun of it. I mean, you see Gareth Bale at this point to the boos when he's warming up on the touchline to be a substitute.
Practicing
literally laughing out loud at the boos. So Neymar, take a little notes from Gareth Bale. And a lot of you sending in your questions about United Tottenham. United pulled the win, a 2-1 win against Tottenham, but Dele Alli's goal, sensational. We had 2 great goals yesterday. But what does this mean? I mean, does this buy Solskjaer a little bit more time? We spoke about it yesterday, what it would mean and if he won.
So I don't know that in the real world it was going to have a repercussion as big as like Ole being fired. It might be the case. I don't know that. But what I do know is that sound you heard at that final whistle was the reporters sort of like tearing up their Ole Gunnar Solskjaer obituaries about his time, right? Because that was the narrative. The narrative was that he's done, and this is sort of the death nail. And they come up with a good enough performance to win at home and sort of spoil what I feel like a lot of people were rooting. Like, it's been a while since people were rooting for Mourinho. This felt like a moment where people were rooting for Mourinho to go back to Old Trafford and beat his old club. And it wasn't to be. So we mentioned, we talked about this game yesterday on this show ahead of kickoff. And I talked about the wins that, sure, they had won 3 in a row since he took over, but they weren't the most impressive wins against teams like West Ham and Olympiacos. Was it Brighton? No, it was Bournemouth. Was the other one. And
they conceded a lot
of goals.
Yeah.
They continue to concede a lot of goals. And you imagine that that's the one thing that Mourinho will sort out. Mourinho will sort out that the defense of Spurs. And they probably won't, a month from now be conceding as many goals.
A lot of you saying that you wanted Mourinho to walk away with a win. But a lot of you also pointing out that Rashford schooled Mourinho and about the Rashford penalty, which was debatable, to say the least. But Mourinho, I think his demeanor after the match really shows that he has turned a page personally and within his character. He went and congratulated every single Manchester United player. He wasn't that bitter old man that we've seen in the past. So
he looks happy. He does.
Yeah.
He looks happy, and that's good because happy and sarcastic Mourinho is the best Mourinho.
It really is, and we all love those pressers. Anyway, we did tell you that we were going to talk Patrick Vieira and Arsenal, but we're going to have to move that to tomorrow. And also, a lot of you are calling us out on not changing our desk decor to winter. It was a busy day yesterday, guys. We will get to it. We'll do it on Monday.
It's not winter yet.
On Monday, we will do the winter set. Tomorrow, you have to live with fall for a little bit longer. Anyway, we'll see you guys mañana. Ciao, ciao.